Willkommen. Es sind ja heute Menschen aus ganz vielen Ländern da. Ich versuch's mal. Willkommen, welcome, dann heißt es willkommen, welcome. Und wer kann bitte Flämisch? Was heißt es auf Flämisch? Welcome. Schon alles ziemlich ähnlich. Das hat mir eigentlich Mut gemacht, dass ich gesagt habe, irgendwie kriegen wir das zusammen. Wenn das Willkommen in all den Sprachen so nah beieinander ist, dann werden vielleicht auch die Forschungen irgendwie zusammenrücken können und die Ergebnisse allen zugutekommen können. Also herzlich willkommen.
And we can all
Creative
get close together.
Aging.
So, creative aging.
Klingt ziemlich gut.
Welcome
Auf
to the
Deutsch
conference.
heißt es
It
leider
sounds quite
kulturelle
good.
Teilhabe im
In
Alter.
German, the term isn't quite as snappy.
Das ist ein bisschen
It's
typisch für
slightly
uns.
cumbersome,
So
but
leicht
it's so
geht uns das
typical.
alles nicht runter.
In
Darüber werden
Germany,
wir heute auch
we
noch
don't make life
eine
easier
oder
for
andere
ourselves.
Wort
And I
verlieren.
believe that we'll say a
Creative
couple of
aging
words
steht
about
hier
this
für mindestens
time and again today.
drei
Creative
allein.
aging, in my
Nicht
mind,
nur
stands
das, was
at
einem
least for
als
three things,
erstes, wenn
not
man gar
just
keine Ahnung
for
davon
what
hält, nämlich,
one would
oh, da
probably
macht man mal was
believe if one didn't know anything more about the topic, namely to do just something fun. But creative aging is indeed almost synonymous to cultural engagement and participation. Second, it's the title of a project right now for strategic cooperation. It's an Erasmus project within the scope of Eurocities. It has been developed. It's a partnership. It is going to be used in a lot of different contexts, so please don't become confused about that. Sometimes it'll refer to one thing and other times to something else, but it'll all become quite logical to you. Participating in cultural life requires two different things. If you want to reach people who don't have immediate accessibility and perhaps cannot access the resources directly, you need strategic strategies, you need research, you need practical implementation, from the bird's eye view to a hands-on approach. So you really need to go from theory to everyday life. And this is exactly how we're going to put this day together. We're going to take a look at the backdrop to research. We're also going to take a look at how this concept can be implemented directly in a number of different cities. This conference is being hosted by the Culture Department of the City of Munich today within the scope of the EU-subsidized project called Creative Aging. This is a joint project in which 5 countries are participating, as I can tell, and it starts with the state of Berlin. And we mustn't forget that the city of Berlin is not the same as the state of Berlin. Brighton and Hove, Gothenburg, Leeuwarden, and Ostend. All representatives from all of these regions will speak to you today and explain to you what is going on there. I'm very happy to have you all here.
The experiences you all have. Und in dieser Zeit sind Sie so weit hierher gereist. Vielen Dank.
And thank you for having traveled from so far. I have some housekeeping remarks to make before we actually get started. We have headphones. Everything is going to be interpreted today. In the booth in the back, we have 2 interpreters, a wonderful female interpreter and her colleague. Please leave your headset on the chairs whenever you leave the room for a break or at the end of the conference. We will have video recordings of the conference. If you are worried because you're having a bad hair day or something like that, don't worry. The camera will only be focused on the stage. All questions will be recorded and we will provide it as a live stream on YouTube from the Cultural Department of Munich, but the camera will only be focused on the stage. For documentation purposes, the questions will be recorded, but they will be removed from the recording afterwards. There is no obligation to wear a mask today. Anyone who wishes to do so, regardless, is welcome to do so. All of the presenters decided to do without a mask today. So now we're going to actually get started. The first words of welcome will come from two individuals who are sitting in the front row today. Julia Schönfeld-Knorr, the City Council woman who many of you know already, and she will be followed by the cultural attaché Anton Biebl. May I ask you, dear Julia, to come up to the stage?
Ja, lieber Anton Biebl, liebe Marie Burmeleit, meine Stadtratskollegin, liebe Mitarbeiterinnen der Verwaltung und liebes Publikum. Ich begrüße Sie hier sehr herzlich zu dieser
today. I would like to welcome all of you to the Creative Aging Conference, also on behalf of Dieter Reiter, the mayor of Munich, whom I am proud to represent today. I would also like to express a very warm word of welcome to our international guests from Berlin, Brighton Hove, Leeuwarden, and Ostend. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
International exchange, especially in these special times. Welcome. Ich finde das mal einen Applaus wert.
I am very happy that in your Erasmus Plus project you have dedicated yourselves to creative aging and cultural engagement that is directed to senior citizens. This is an issue that moves me for two reasons. First, as a managing director of the Cultural and Citizens Center in Moosach, and also in my role as city councilwoman. In Peekhoven-Schlüssel, I experience time and again every day how senior citizens accept the offerings that we have for them, enjoy them, and grow on that basis. As a city councilwoman, I am always intent on supporting these efforts, and I always try to react to the demand existing in Munich. But what are the challenges that senior citizens in these cities dealing with specifically? This is something I'd like to address briefly. Compared to the rest of Germany, Munich has a relatively young population. The average age is 41.4 years. The forecast is that in the future this is not going to change. And this is due to increasing moves to the Isar Valley, as our city is being increasingly called in the tech sector. By 2040, the city will have grown by 250,000 people to 1.8 million inhabitants. Therefore, you associate with Munich not just the Oktoberfest, the beer festival, but also housing scarcity and high rent. This builds existential pressure for everyone, especially those people who are not among the high wage earners and pensioners and other senior citizens. We have to react to that. In Munich, for 40 years, we have been dealing with Section 71 of the Social Code, and that is the section on support for senior citizens. The objective here is to overcome difficulties that arise when people age, to reduce them, and to make sure that senior citizens remain able to participate in daily life and culture, and to obtain self-help. Cultural engagement can definitely make a contribution to this, and in the social code it is mentioned explicitly that this is a goal. Since 2012 in Munich we have had a concept for senior citizens, which by the way is going to be developed further this year. We have an overall concept for support for senior citizens, and we have decided that innovative concepts will be developed, that we will expand care offerings and digital offerings for older people. Currently in the city we have 32 service centers for senior citizens. This is unique. They provide cultural offerings, and since 2021 the webpage of KOM Online has been a platform on which numerous cultural and leisure offerings are listed for senior citizens and older people. We have a multifaceted cultural landscape. We have conference centers, cultural centers. We have centers for senior citizen education and training, and even a institution of higher learning dedicated to senior citizens. So we have a wonderful landscape for cultural education. Nevertheless, it remains a challenge. Equal participation isn't something that you can ensure easily. We need to address senior citizens successfully with cultural offerings. And you, in your Erasmus Plus project, have placed this on center stage. Older people who live alone, who are not able to walk far away from their apartments, or who have a very small pension, who perhaps have not been able to discover their creative talents, and who therefore may say, well, art and culture, that's not my bag. But of course, they usually have talents that rest dormant, and it's great to discover them. In the Erasmus Plus exchange, you have shared strategies through which this can be accomplished, through which older people can be reached with cultural offerings so that they can self-determinedly participate in cultural life, and within the principle of lifelong learning can continue to unleash their potential. I really look forward to hearing what you all have to say about this. I wish you a wonderful day, a great conference. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the City of Munich for organizing this event, and thank you for your attention.
Darf ich Ihnen jetzt Anton Biebl vorstellen?
I would now like to present to you Anton Biebl. I would also like to welcome all of you here to this conference today, and thank you, Julia Schönfeld-Knorr, for the words of welcome and gratitude. I would like to endorse them. This is not really an opening, but rather a vernissage, which is occurring on the third day, and so I look forward to the summaries of the project results. As you said earlier, in Munich we have quite a broad range of offering in the city of Munich, dedicated to cultural engagement among senior citizens. We have been very successful over about 40 years. I would like to add that since 2009, we have had a concept for cultural education in Munich, which places equal participation on center stage. And in 2019, aging and cross-generational cooperation has been something that we have focused on specifically. And this is why it was correct 2.5 years ago to launch the Creative Aging Erasmus Plus project. Together with other European countries, the objective was to learn from one another. I am convinced that we took the right step in making this decision. I have taken a look at the project results and the project report. This is something we can be proud of, but it also shows that we shouldn't rest on our thumbs. As Julia said, equal participation in culture is something that continues to be a challenge. This is a challenge that we want to tackle through cross-disciplinary cooperation. The Creative Aging project was created on that basis. Under the auspices of Eurocities, all administrations from the fields of culture, education, training and health have got together, and we have learned that cultural education in Brighton is not assigned to the cultural department, but rather to the health department, because it promotes well-being. And I would like to quote from this project's results. As you said, creative aging works. And the other working title that you mentioned was Culture on Prescription. This is something that I will get to later on. Furthermore, I would like to shed some light on the municipal and the higher levels. I'd like to get them together. We have employees working in both areas, but we haven't forgotten policymakers either. It was with great interest that I read through the political guidelines that you formulated, and I'll have to figure out, or you will all have to figure out how they can be implemented. During the Erasmus exchange, we have learned that this type of cooperation indeed is an important prerequisite for successful support and promotion of creative aging in communities and municipalities, because through cooperation we can form a shared understanding of what cultural engagement means and can achieve. This is important in cultural institutions as well as in care organizations, training and education institutions, as well as in hospitals. You yourselves say that cross-sectoral cooperation is a key, and that is something that I am happy to endorse. City administration works if you provide them with concepts. And it still does. So city administration used to read that it worked sometimes because concepts were just put in a drawer, and sometimes the demands weren't even in line with reality. I hope, however, that we manage to continue implementing concepts, not just through rounds of talks, but actually by taking action, and that will allow us to make some progress and achieve cultural engagement and replace social isolation. Now, I would also like to thank the people in the social department for this open cooperation, and perhaps in this post-pandemic era and in the post-Ukraine crisis era, we can bring people even closer together. And for the field of cultural education, I hope that cultural pedagogy remains a topic that is increasingly discovered and further developed. Cultural education has its roots in youth. The subject of aging among actors in Munich isn't very firmly ingrained, and I think, my dear Erasmus partners in your cities, the situation may be similar. This is why I'm happy to continue support international exchange on this topic and ingraining creative aging in the European City Network of Europe, which is of course called Eurocities. And sharing experiences with you has shown me once again how valuable it is to look beyond one's backyard and broaden one's horizons. Now, Mrs. Schönfeld-Knorr, I've spoken to you already, and we will develop a vision on what the next steps could look like in the city administration in this area. What we would like to try and do is to get a patron. Now, of course, this is a vision, to get a patron for aging. I have mulled it over in my head. I think Verena Dietl, the second deputy mayor, may be the perfect choice for that. After, in the post-pandemic era, we are going to have a re-festival, and I think that we could link that to creative aging projects. We also thought that it might be interesting to have a joint invitation to tender from the Educational and Culture Department for cross-disciplinary projects, and I think that from your results we can derive some subsidy criteria. And we also have political projects. On the one hand, the culture on prescription, and on the other hand, recommendations to policymakers. I would like to thank everyone who has contributed to the success of this project, and I hope that you all have a wonderful exchange of experiences and ideas at this conference. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Biebl and Mrs. Schönfeld-Knorr. Well, those are wonderful prospects for the city of Munich, and we'll take your word for it.